What is going on? Mark Duffy, welcome to my channel. On today's episode I'm going to show you how I edit my photos on Lightroom. It's been nearly 3 years since I did my last video, and although it's up that length of time, a lot of people still don't know I have the video there. So I thought, since I have a lot more followers since then on Instagram and it's still a question I get asked a lot, I thought, you know what, my technique has changed slightly and there's a couple of things I've done differently and there's a couple of new things I've added into it. So why not do a fresh 2020 revision on how I actually edit my photos on Lightroom. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and maybe subscribe to my channel. I don't know, this feels like such a begging thing. This is probably the only video I'm going to put this into because I'm not the kind of person to beg. Look, if you like it, like it. If you want to subscribe, I'm going to do this anyway. Like I'm more concerned that you learn something than you follow me. So let's not waste any more time talking and let's get into the computer. Okay, so now we're on my computer and you can see on my background I have my most favorite photo I've ever taken. I get this question asked all the time and this is the definitive answer. The reason I love this photo is it was a concept I had to showcase a sundial. What does it actually see? It sees a full sunrise and a full moonrise. These only actually occur in this alignment twice in the year. It took me 3 attempts over 18 months to get this. So this is actually my favorite photo and it's literally a 15-minute drive from my house. So we'll come down to Lightroom and we'll start into this. Now you'll see here all my photos here in Lightroom, all the different photos I do between events, headshots, portraits, landscapes, you know, products and all. Someone did ask me on Instagram to show how I import files, so we'll start that. So with the files, I don't actually use Lightroom to import off my camera. I import straight onto my computer first of all, folder them as I wish, as you see here on the left hand side, my foldering, and further down here you'll see my archive photos that I finished with that are on my server. So if we come down to import, click into that, it'll open up some options here. So you've got local disk. I don't have my stuff on local disks, I have it on my SSD. So we're going to normally I would go into photography and then do the year, and you'll see how I actually categorize it there. So if we just show this here, so if I'm doing different projects for different companies and stuff, I'll actually name it for them so it doesn't get confused with anything else. And then if it's just for my own stuff, I'll have it either in the XT3 I shot or the XT2. And you'll see here, all these will be grayed out because they're actually already imported in. So that's how I actually folder my stuff. So we'll actually go to the files we're going to be using today. So that's these ones here, and it will preview all your photos. Just let it load for a second here. So there you have it. So we're going to be going through different kinds of photos right now to show a full spectrum. It's not just a one-sided, let's do landscapes, let's do everything. So I think the first one we'll do is we'll actually go with the Portmonic shot first, because this is quite typical of what you would see in my kind of photography. So we'll start with the edit. You can see here on the top left in your Lightroom, you'll see all the details. If you press I, you can toggle between the different information. So let's get into this. Let's see how I would actually go about editing this photo. So the first thing I would do is come over and pull in the highlights. Now people will tell you go -100, but if you look when you do that, it's not too bad here because it's quite a bright shot, but you will see that if you go too much you will destroy the sun, and you don't really want to do that. You kind of want to retain some of the brightness, so you're only trying to control. That's what the highlights are doing. And then the shadows, it's the opposite. You bring it forward to brighten up the shadows. Again, you don't really want to destroy the file too much. So what I would normally do is, if you double click these, you can go back to 0. So what I would do is just kind of control it, not too much. Just bring it down to a healthy amount. So maybe 65 will do. Then the shadows, bring it up. I never bring it up to 100. I used to, but I don't anymore. Bring it at max, but 65. Dependent, like, you know, low ISO like 160. That's, you know, on Fuji's that's the lowest it'll go, because I was bracketing this shot, so I did take multiple exposures for this, because I always blend my exposures. In this I'm only showing my approach in Lightroom. Blending exposures will be another tutorial, because that's Photoshop. So, you know, depending on the ISO, you know, you may not be able to get up to 65. You may only be able to get up to 44, because you will introduce noise into your image. So I would just push that maybe 65, 70. We'll go 70 for the time being, and then just bring the blacks down just to see the level of the blacks. You can tell on the histogram that this is black, the middle is your midtones, and then the right side is your highlights. If that goes bright, I'll show you here, just increase the exposure, and once that goes white, you will see if you hover over it, it'll actually show you. You'll see on the sun now that's completely clipped. You've lost information, bring it back. So we'll just undo that there. So on the black, we just want to check that we have a good level of black in that photo. So I usually just bring it down to -9. You can hold the Alt button and you can actually see how much black you're introducing into the photo. So you can see from the -33, that's a lot. So that's quite dark. So that's way too much for my liking. So I don't really like it. I only add about maybe -7, -9 in it. And then I go up to contrast, where I will usually go a bit more than what's needed. It's maybe +26, and then I'll come down and add clarity then after that. I used to go full 100, and then I used to paint clarity out of the sky. Not a big fan of so much clarity. You can always tell when someone uses clarity. For one, you'll see this halo along the edges, and it's just not nice. I used to like it. I think anyone who starts onto Lightroom, they find the clarity and they just go full tilt with it, just hell for leather. Nowadays I rarely go past 30, so we'll probably add 30. Let's see. Yeah, I think there's enough drama in it, just going to 30. And then once you introduce clarity, you're going to lose vibrancy, so you're going to need to bring in the vibrancy again. So maybe up to 33. And if you use the backspace, you can toggle that on and off. So that's just going back to how the raw was, and now with a little bit of adjustment that I've done here. And now that I've done a few edits, I can actually see how the colors have actually reacted to my edit. So now is a good time to check your white balance. So you can go up and see what Lightroom thinks it should be. Yeah, it's okay. We've lost the magenta and the nice blue that was there that morning by like the 7500 Kelvin. It's pretty close to shade. If I go to shade, it's just going to add in magenta. I don't think there's enough, so maybe bring it back to cloudy. And let's see what daylight does. Too blue. So maybe we'll go halfway. I tell you what, we'll go 6850 and we'll go maybe 20. Yeah, that looks nice. I actually can't remember. I did not take note of any of the settings that I did on this edit or any of the other photos. So I'm doing this from scratch again right in front of you here. So next thing to do is sharpen. And if you haven't seen my video, I'll link it above on how I actually approach sharpening. So I'm actually not going to explain it right now. I'm just going to go through it. Now the next thing is the magic. Now this is the most important part of all photo editing, and it is the hue, saturation and luminance section. So basically hue is the tint of the color for each channel, saturation is the strength of each channel, and luminance is the brightness of each channel. First thing I do always, I do luminance and then I do saturation, and very rarely would I ever touch hue. But we'll just go into luminance for the time being. So I always start with red, so boost it, see what it's doing. And in this occasion, I am going to bring it down. And on the orange, so what I find with the orange, you're better off actually darkening the orange. And this is all about balance. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually trying to balance the color. So we'll darken the orange, and then because the yellow is naturally the brighter section of the sunrise, I think you're always better to brighten it. That's possibly why you should consider then taking your highlights down a little bit more, but we can always review that afterwards. But we'll just bring it up just a little bit, not too much, maybe the 4. Keep it in control. Maybe bring the orange down a little bit more. Let's see, are there any greens? And this is a good check to see what color is actually being used in the image. So you just toggle it up and down. Not really, so we don't have to worry about that one. What is aqua doing? Not much either. Back to 0. Blue. Now here's the question: do we want to darken it? Do we want to brighten it? By brighten it, we're getting nice separation over here, but we're losing these. And then if we darken it, is it adding more drama to the shot? It kind of is. So maybe -20. And then purple. I kind of like it. Maybe a bit there, just a little bit down. And then magenta, I'll probably take the magenta up a little bit. And you can see not much is going on. And if you look at that, if you were to look at that in reverse, like horizontally, it looks quite similar to how you would go about EQ and sound. So here's your your low frequencies, you're scooping the mids, and you're pushing the high frequencies. If you want to think of it like that there, this is the exact same thing. This is my approach. I come from a music background, so this is exactly how I would approach sound as well. You're trying to control and balance your frequencies. Here, the frequencies are now the brightness of my images. And now I'm going to go into the saturation. Now what I do with the saturation is I put it all to black and white, so I can see exactly what each channel is doing. So double click back to 0 for red. Let's boost that. Orange. Now what I normally do for balancing properly now is I actually reduce the strength of the orange, and then I boost the strength of the yellow. I don't know why, but it actually gives, it always feels as if it feels more vibrant down after that. I can't explain why, but that's my approach. For blues, I'm going to strengthen that up. And then purples, not even there. And then magentas, just boost them up a bit more. And then we're going to go into the split toning. You rarely ever hear people talking about split toning. Split toning is a good way of adding in that teal and orange. If you want to do it this way, this is one method of doing it. So hold the Alt button on the hue, and it'll show 100% of what that hue is going to do to your color. So you can go through the whole spectrum and see how to add it. And if we say maybe around, let me see, say 25, that kind of looks, or even 29, it kind of looks like what you'd see on Instagram. And some people just go too heavy, like, whoa, look at that, boom. And then it's come down to the shadows, hold the Alt and bring it over to teal, because that's what we heard, and we should do this, and maybe there, look at that, and go, look at this, look ma'am, I pulled the slider all the way over, and the balance is all over the place. Maybe a little bit more blue, or if I go right, I'll go and add more highlights. Let's go blue. Now, if I just toggle that on and off, for the whole lot, yeah, look, even the raw file, you can see it's not even remotely similar. This is why I don't like teal and orange. If I turn this on and off, there is it's a nice image that represents what actually occurred when I was photographing. And this is, I don't know what this is. For me, when you produce something, that's a mess. So we'll go back again, and we'll go hue, and we'll go up to, where was I? 29, wasn't it? Boom. Now we'll add in how I would actually go about it. You only need to add it in subtly. This is a subtle approach. It's only to complement what you've done and just extenuate what you've done as well, and give a bit more feeling towards it. So that looks good. 197. The numbers don't really matter. It's actually how the color looks. You'll find that different photos will have different colors needed, and probably a little bit more blue. So what I normally do is, if I have more blue than the orange added, then I'll just shift the balance. So when you go right, it adds more to the highlights. If you go left, it goes to the shadows, and I always lean towards the highlights. And then my last part of all this, and this is one thing people don't know, you wouldn't even know, I do use the teal and orange. I've used teal and orange on my photos for the last 9 months, I'd say. Teal and orange literally is this, actually. You just bring it to the left, and then bring your red to the right, and that's how you get that teal and orange. And that kind of look there, I detest it. It's a trend, and when the trend dies, this is gone and something else will replace it. But what I actually do is I just introduce it just a little bit, just to give a little bit of a kick. I do find when you bring it in a little bit, it adds a little kick to your photo. Now, not all the time, but sometimes. But in this case, I know I did use it. And let's bring it around about 5. Subtle. So if we turn that off and turn split toning off, you can see it's really subtle what we're doing. Really, really subtle. But when you add it all together, then it becomes coherent. Now, the only thing is, this is quite a dark image because the foreground's quite dark, and there's not a great balance on it. So what I would do is, now I shot this knowing I was going to exposure blend, but if you didn't want to exposure blend, what you could do is you could come up to your gradient tool, and if you hold the shift button, it'll bring it in exactly level. So bring that up to, say, here, come down and show me where that is, so you can see where it's affecting in the photo. Turn it off for a second, and then come on to the exposure, brighten this. So increase my shadows, decrease my highlights. Do we need to? No, we don't need to. Bring it back just a little bit. And I'm gonna, if you just hover around the circle, you can tilt it. Oh, that's not doing a great job, is it? It's not doing a great job at that now. I should say as well that in Lightroom, I don't know what it is, I don't really like using my graphics tablet. So you'll hear this clicking of my mouse. I use a trackball mouse, and I just much prefer it. I do use the graphics tablet for the next part, so I'm just going to go and reach that now. So for the next section is when you see this mask applied, it's probably applying a little bit in here as well into the sky. We don't really want that. You can see right up there, look, all that section has been brightened up, and we don't really want that. So leave the mask on, go up to brush. This is one of the best features that they brought into Lightroom. So you can add in, if you wanted to paint into this, so if you felt the absolute need to use the same settings that are here, and you can brush in there as well, and all of that will be applied in. Don't want to do that. What we want to do here is we're going to come to erase, and we're going to erase it off the sky. So everywhere in the sky that it is affected. So you can see there. Just come up here and just get rid of it and just make it clean. I'm just going to do this really quickly. You really should spend time at this. Don't use a big brush. Use a big brush for this section, but as soon as you get near this dome, you really should be holding the space bar, click, you can zoom in, make that brush small and make your adjustments as fine as possible. If there's a halo, that means people can see what you've done, and if people can see the trick you've done, that means you haven't done it well. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, you really need to be as accurate as possible. No excuses. I don't care if it's your first time or if it's your 10,000th time. You make sure it's good. If it's not good, go back and do it again. That's my approach. I come from a graphic design background, and when you work for companies, they don't accept excuses. They want results. And if you don't have a good result, then you haven't done it right. Anyway, let's have a look at this. So if we come down here and toggle this on and off. Oh, whoops. In all my talking, I just noticed that I actually deleted everything I'd done here, so just bring it back up again. I'm going to leave this in the video. Shadows. So we'll toggle it on and off now, and you'll see that has been applied. Actually, that's where you could add in the brush, so you can add it in more into this dome. So the brush could be in and just boom. Again, quickly. So yeah, up there, make the brush smaller. Details, details, details. So on and so forth. And there you go. So again, there's the halo when I was talking about. If you see that there, go and fix it. Don't be leaving it and saying there's an excuse towards it. If it's there, it needs to be sorted. Go sort it and fix it. So yeah, so there's the photo. So if we go back to how it looked originally, and here, the highlights, no, that highlights, I really don't like how they look. That's an example of where it needs to just come a little bit brighter. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so there's the first example here. This is a tough photo to do, I won't lie. So what we'll do now is we'll quickly, what you can do now is, if you did like these settings here and you found that this photo was something similar, what you can do is you can select that and then Control Shift on the next one and hit sync. And we don't want, the one thing I'm not going to want to have in this is gradient filters. I don't need that grad filter. And we didn't change the crop, so you don't have to worry about that, but usually I turn that off as well and make sure that, you know, that it's actually all sorted. Yeah, everything else is okay. Hit synchronize, and that's going to sync all the settings I just did there, bar the addition of the gradient filter. Go into this photo and let's have a look at before and after. So there you go. So now we only have to kind of just do a little bit of adjustments. The sun was quite similar, and that just goes to show, like, for my photography, I will plan and I will go out looking for specific sunrises and sunsets. I'll go for these particular colors. I'll wait for months, for these. I'd rather that than force the colours. So you can see the colours are quite similar because they're really similar. That's a sunrise, that's a sunset, really similar what happened. And you know, there someone could say your style is always the same, you always have the same look as on your sun. Because I go looking for them, I don't force feed this. I didn't force the colour. Actually, we're going to check this is a good time to check the white balance. So we'll go how it was shot. A little bit green. Fuji, what were you doing? So things with Fuji, they go automatic on their settings. Let's go auto. A little bit better. Very blue. Yeah, getting there. I'll probably go shade. Yeah, okay, so in this example, I'm going to go shade. I'm going to add 20, just add a little bit more magenta into it. I'm going to go and show you a trick. So with the shade, it gets rid of a lot of blue in the sky. So get your gradient map. Again, hold the shift down, drag it down all the way. Maybe make it small. So when you're holding shift, it constrains it to be absolutely dead straight. And what we'll do is we'll just make it small like that there. So there's going to be a small fade on it. Drag it down to the horizon a little bit there. Stretch it down a little bit more. Bring it back up again. So I don't want it to really affect that area, so I'm just going to fade it out. But I want it to affect there. So get rid of that. Let's have a look. And let's darken the sky a little bit. Yep. Right there. And let's add a little bit blue. Small bit, not much. Don't be going mental. Just a little bit. Now, if I hadn't added the blue, there is a trick to get rid of the gradient of this building, and it's just come to the shadows and brighten them up. But because I've added the blue, it's actually added a tint of blue to the building, so we can't use that. So we just come back down to the brush tool, pick up a pen here for the graphics tablet. Don't ask me why. I know some people are going to be on the comments, you should just be using the graphics tablet, you paid money for it. I know, but I just much prefer using the trackball mouse for some things. And you can see here on the rays, I've the flow set to 100 because I know I want to get rid of everything. You can change the flow to however you want on it and to suit your workflow. Everything that I'm showing you here, this is how I do it. This isn't set in stone. It doesn't have to be the way you do it. You can find your own way. And let's toggle this on and off. So there's the raw. It does go to show the dynamic range, like in here. We're getting a little bit of details. Like, you know, you couldn't see the handle. Now you can. It's not a great handle, I will admit, but I didn't design the building. Yeah, highlights are actually okay. When I go through my photos, I tend to notice that I'm usually in around -40. Leave it there. 70, what do you like? Now you could boost it up. The only thing is when you boost it the full way up like this here, you're going to have to adjust, you know, you might have to use a vignette or something out there, you know, to add in some shadows. It looks very flat, but I find if you just don't go the full way up, come back a bit, it means you can bring it into Photoshop and do some dodging and burning. I don't really do dodging and burning in Lightroom. You can if you like. Just go up here to the brush tool, and what you can do is you can go to, like, say, exposure, set it to 1, and then nice big brush and just paint here. Do all this here. I saw this recently on a f-stoppers tutorial. I thought it was kind of cool. I don't really use it. I want more control than this, but if you were stuck in a pinch and you didn't have time, this could be something for you. So just give me a second here, just get through this. Boom, 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 boom. Actually, you know what? I'm going to delete it out of that section. I don't really want it in the foreground. So I'm going to change the flow on the erase part of this to like 39%. So I'm going to delete 39% of what I just did there now. And this is one thing I don't really like about the brush tool in Lightroom, is this is the widest that I can have the photo, and if I was in Photoshop, I'd actually zoom out more and make the brush way bigger and be way out of the window to have a nice soft grad to what I'm doing right now. Anyway, so we've applied a ridiculous amount of exposure to this shot, and it's overkill. It's overkill for what we're doing. But if you come down here to range mask, you can put in a mask. You just go to luminance and just change the range. So you bring in the threshold of the shadows. See that? Let's toggle it on and off. And compare to what it was like before. So see the way, look, see the way it's applying it to everything. Everything's been brightened up. But you just change your range, bring it all the way here. Now you've kind of dodged and burned the rocks. And if you thought it was kind of clipping, so say if we change, maybe go mental, go like up to nearly 2 stops above. You might find it actually looks, let's go a bit more, let's go like, yeah. So this might look a little bit hot, as they'd call it. So you just bring the highlights threshold down. So this is kind of like, for anyone who's a musician who's doing photos, this is kind of like how you would approach compression, where you have your threshold for a gate or compression or a hard limiter. But here's just a cool way of doing. It's a little bit contrasty looking here, but you know, if you didn't want to go into Photoshop and do dodging and burning, this could be an option for you. Saw this on f-stoppers, just thought I'd throw it in here to share with you. So now we've done landscapes and we've shown you how colourful and all that they can be. One thing I'm actually going to show you is quickly here. I'm just going to take the Collins one. I'm just using this photo here as an example, as to show you why I don't like teal and orange. And so just bear with me a second. I'm just going to get through a few edits here. Okay, now I'm going to show you actually how I actually apply a vignette if it was like a single shot like this here. Usually I'd be using, again, Photoshop when I'm dodging and burning. I do my vignettes myself, but just bring this to the left a little bit. Now that's overkill. What I do is I usually bring it a little bit, like say 16, and then I reduce the midpoint. So if we actually get rid of the feather, let's see what's happening here, and then you'll see what the midpoint's doing. So you're actually just changing where the midpoint is, and you can change the shape of it as well. So more. That's pretty cool, isn't it, with the rounded corners? Or you can go full circle. I never touch the roundness. And back to feather, and you can change the feather as well. You can make it really light. I don't really bother anymore. Not since I started using the midpoint. So bring the midpoint in, and it means you can reduce the vignette. It's not as obvious, but it's just darken the corners and darken this part of the foreground. It's not overly great. I really want the viewer to be looking around this area and a bit this area here, and then have the rest as a bit of drama. And when I add a vignette like that there as well, what I sometimes do is I bring in, again, my grad filter, just bring it down nice and big like this here. That's the previous settings we had on it. So come here and just darken just a little bit, add a little bit of contrast. And with the vignette, it can really actually, it's probably a bit too high. It can add a lot of drama. Now, the reason I was using this photo here is because of all the green from the barley or whatever it is. If you were to use teal and orange in this, you've now turned it. Now, it could be a thing that you want to show that this is, you know, nearly ripe, which is a fair enough point. But if that's grass, like, I would not like to have a garden with grass that looked like that. It's burnt. That's like someone poured bleach over it. So now we'll move on to this photo here. Now, this photo here, I do think straight off the bat, this will suit a teal and orange. So what I might do is I'm actually just going to take the settings again from the Collins Castle, and this is how presets work. This is why I say you don't need presets. Like, I have stuff here that's set up for headshots and stuff. Now, they're only meant as quick initial stuff. I'm going to tweak them like mad. Yeah, all good. Now, this is a darker image, but I knew straight away that the teal and orange I was doing was gonna suit this kind of photo. Now, this is not how I actually ended up editing the photo, but it still is pretty cool. And you can see how the highlights, if you notice that your sun starts looking like that, bring your highlights back until it looks natural. So you just want to control it just that little bit. So maybe just a bit there, maybe we want to brighten this a bit. Again, like I said, this is ISO 1600. And the sharpening hasn't been treated properly. Actually, I didn't realize this. I must have treated the sharpening again, and the focus isn't on point there, but I think I might have treated that. I have a trick for that. I think I showed it in that sharpening noise photo video. Let's go down to the teal and orange, see what it's doing. Yeah, maybe just pull it back a little bit. I might actually just increase the saturation of this blue. Yeah, sometimes this saturation thing just adds a little pop to your images as well. I don't really understand why, but it just does. Let's go mental with this one. Let's go full tilt. Now, I'm not suggesting you should. It kind of suits the image. I will be checking for noise though. Not too bad. And let's just treat this for how I would treat this for noise. So it's 1600. I'll bring it down to 74. Change that to 26. And that's how I treat for noise. Boom. Again, check out the video I did of the sharpening and noise treatment within Lightroom. And what we'll do now is we will add in the Instagram fade. So you need your tone curve for that one. So pull down the shadows, increase the highlights, and then you're going to bring the level of the black. So this is black. Watch this when I bring this level up. I've shifted where black is, and then we've darkened the image around it, and that's what gives this fade look to your photo. So if we go on and off, and then what I might do is I get the brush and we'll just add in, bring the flow and density down. Don't want it too strong. Just bring it in gradually. And we're just painting because it's a good bit dark. We're losing details. This is before and after on that photo there. Been applied with what I would consider a heavy amount of the teal and orange, but like I said, there's times that it suits the photos. It all depends on what it suits. This is why I don't really like stuff being applied just because it's cool. Make it. If you want to make it your own, make it suit it. The photo will tell you how it should be edited. If I take all these edits and apply it to the next one, and actually what I'll do as well is, so this is a portrait photo. So for anyone asking about how I actually crop for Instagram, I do it in Lightroom. So you come down to 4 to 5. And then just reshape it. So I kind of want his nose to be along the 1/3, not overly. I want a bit of space, a bit of headroom, and I'm looking at the space under his elbow as well. That looks pretty good. Hit return. So I'm going to take all these edits I've done and I'm going to apply them to the next photo, but I don't want that crop on that photo because it doesn't need it. So that's where this is important when you're coming in. Do we want the brush? No. So the brush effects we don't need. Leave the crop off. Leave the brush off. Yeah, let's have a look now. I don't think this is going to suit this photo. No, I didn't think so. So there's not every photo that this is going to suit. Yeah, I think the curve is destroying this image. I always find when I see bokeh, bokeh's lovely. When you have a nice lens like that, 56mm f1.2, why hit it with such a severe curve? You're just destroying what you've paid money for. It's supposed to look soft and silky. That looks harsh. Especially over here, it looks like something's wrong with the lens. Let's have a look. It's probably, that's again just showing you too much down in the highlights. Come back up again. It's too hot there. Control it just a little bit. You just want to see a little bit. You still want to have that it's emitting light, and brighten that image there. Yeah, that's a bit better there, isn't it? Do we want the teal and orange? Okay, we'll go with the teal and orange on this one too. So again, kind of suits it, but you could get away with not having it. Split toning, leave it in. I might just make the orange just a little bit stronger. Yeah, just a little bit stronger. This is probably okay. Let's control the colors. Nice and vibrant. And if you didn't want all that vibrancy, you can take it out. You can drag it back again, have it, and maybe take the saturation down overall. It's a bit grimy looking. Maybe add in a vignette. Actually, there is a vignette added in. Yeah, I'd leave the vignette in, just a slight one, not too much. It doesn't have to be too strong. And you could change the crop now as well. Actually, maybe it suits a 4 to 5. Possibly does. We don't really need that light. It's probably just distracting the viewer. So maybe if I had actually just set the sync And it just goes to show, you know, you can sync your stuff just to go quickly instead of having to go, but I still would have arrived possibly at this result. Let's try color. No, we'll go daylight. Yeah. So Fuji got it right there, and you can see that their white balance does change from shot to shot. It's one of my, it is a thing that kind of gets on my nerves every so often with Fuji, but it does do that. Okay, so here's a photo. There's a good example of a photo that really says to you straight off the bat, make me black and white. So let's do that. Make it black and white. And I want a high key one, so go highlights. Not going to do too much with the highlights because I really want to, I'm going to try and blow that out as much as possible, control it. Now with black and white, I'm going to tell you straight away, you're basically turning everything to 100. Like when people see a lovely sunset, they ask you, oh, is there much photoshopping in that? And you're like, no, there's not much actually. But when you go black and white, they're like, oh, they never question it, but there's so much editing needed in a black and white to really make it punch. Maybe there, I don't want to, I kind of liking that. I want these still to be strong, because if you go total white, you just lose everything. So don't want, maybe not a total high key. More contrast. Oh, he wants more contrast. We'll go more. Yes, have it. Reduce the shadows. Now, if you dehaze it, you're going to get more details. I don't really use dehaze all that often. And you'll probably notice as well, I don't have the texture in this as well because I haven't updated Lightroom in ages. So, yeah, I don't really want to see much more. Maybe add. See, that's the great thing with dehaze as well. It adds to the fog. So that's the wee trick you can learn too. Add that. What we will do actually is, I'll bring that in a gradient. So the gradient will add to the fog, not the brightness. We want dehaze. So I don't want it here. I just want it up there. Yeah, right there. Nice. And again, come into your colors and see what each is doing. That's doing nothing. See that there now? Boom. Add that up. Yep. More of that. That's doing nothing. What's the blue doing? Add a bit of brightness in the blue. And then the white, which is where I wanted to brighten this up, and the wall as well to bring the viewer through the image. So that's what I'm definitely going to do with the purple. And then what about the magenta? Nothing really. And what you can do as well with some photos is you can add in you can still do the teal and orange on a black and white with split toning. So again, hold the Alt to see what it's going to do exactly with the color. Maybe there. 29 again, look at that magic number. Bring it up to, oh actually no, you know what, I'm going to bring it a bit more, yeah, maybe into the 40s, because it won't look too sepia. You don't want it looking too sepia or sepia, or whatever way you pronounce that. But there. Now, I know some people are going to go, ooh, dirt, but that's, you know, that approach, that attitude to the sepia tones of, ooh, that's dirt, is my point on teal and orange. At some stage, people are going to go, oh, teal and orange, can't believe you did that. Now, with black and whites, you don't really mind too much grain, so I actually just add in full as if it's a clean image. Now, it is pretty clean, even at ISO 60, ISO 640. But you know, sometimes you can add in some noise as well. Like, but you can add in grain later on down here. You can add in grain. I just find it always kind of looks a little fake. You're better off if you want a lot of grain, shoot at a high ISO and turn it black and white, and it'll give you a grain effect. Let's add a wee vignette. Boom, nice. And I really don't like that. Some photos it suits. This one doesn't suit. Black and white, and let's see it on and off. So that's how I would approach black and white. So it's not too bad, pretty easy. So now that we've done all these, let's go on to like a portrait where most of your work is done in lighting, so there's not much to be done with this. So I'm actually just going to use one of my presets here. Just toggle over them, you can see the difference in them. And that one is pretty good. Just quickly, just to get through this, so you can see I don't use clarity all that much because of how I control the exposure. There's not much to be taken down. It's just a little bit hot on the guys' faces. This was a shot I did for Rock Salt Cafe in Blackrock. It's a clean enough image, just 78, 22, so just for the ISO 400. I don't think it needs a vignette. Teal and Orange, will we go Teal and Orange with it? No. Maybe just add in a little bit. Subtle amount. It's all about the subtleties. All about the subtleties. What do we like on the colours back here? Reset all that. So I'm just holding the Alt button and clicking here. You'll see it once you hold the Alt button. You'll see it on all of them. It just says reset. Yeah. So dodging and burning without dodging and burning by using the luminance. So if you found the background a little bit distracting, you can use the yellow to darken it. It doesn't pull the eye. Maybe it gives a bit of separation. I was about to call him Sean, but that's his brother's name. I went to school with his brother. No. Oh, look, it pop off his tattoo. Yeah, I won't touch his tattoo. Okay, they all look fine into the colour. Now with this here, you can go as much as you want for saturation, but for skin tones you need to control in with the orange and yellow. So I usually bring these all back in again and just balance them out. So possibly bring down the reds a little bit and then leave the oranges. Just the yellow there. I like the yellow there. Yeah, so not much. I didn't do much there. So that's how I get that's usually how I get my skin tones. It's all about it's all about the light really. On how you approach it. If you thought the person was a little bit too pale looking, you could add in some colour into them, just a small bit, just a little pinch. Maybe add some nice contrast into the colours with the shadows. That doesn't actually look too bad actually. Yeah, I'm going to leave that in there. I really like the blue into the shadows. Just gives extra contrast to it without being overly contrasted. This is a dark image anyway, like, you know, and you don't really want too much. You've probably noticed from this edit, I don't really touch the curves adjustment all that much. Like, that's far too harsh looking. It's really not for my taste at all. Don't forget, when you put this onto a smartphone, it's gonna become even more contrasted for how photos look on smartphones lately. So you have to keep that in mind as well. Let's check our white balance. So I kind of like daylight. Yeah, I like the daylight. That's nice there. One thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to take the exposure just a touch down, so you can see the exposure was a little bit down. I do actually use a good bit of contrast in my portrait photos. Not too sure why. Again, it's taste. This is all just taste. Yeah, and then the last thing to do is to crop out the reflector, which is giving the uplight into their arms, the lower parts, and then into their face as well. Like so, I would say a 4 to 5. I kind of shot this knowing that it would do. Oh no, it didn't. Right. Okay. Well, then what we'll do is we'll bring in from the left. There, yeah, and not oh no, it's okay. I kind of want to have. I usually kind of like having their heads. I don't like much space over their heads, but as long as you can keep their head in and around the 1/3, you're doing a good one. So the only way really to know is if this suits the photo is hit enter, and yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. That's it. I'm pretty happy with that one. So we can go on to the last thing. This is products, and again, just like the portraits, you do all your work setting up the lights. You know, I have strip boxes, I have diffusers, I have gold cards in behind every one of them. There's gold cards. You can actually see I didn't actually do a good job with this photo. I did another photo where I lowered the tripod. I just obviously didn't pick the right one for this example. You can actually see the gold cards there that I had sitting. So I have these little gold cards that I cut out for each glass, and a big one for the bottle. And you angle them in such a way that they reflect the light from the strip box coming from the right and reflect it through the bottle to give that glow to your whiskey, and that's how you do that. So what I'm going to do right now is actually going to take, what photo would suit that one? I think the edit that I did on this will actually suit this, because there's not much edits on this, and it's the same for the products. You don't need much editing. I don't want the crop to be done. I'll take the noise reduction. What else do I want? Do I want that? No, there's nothing applied. Yeah, we'll take all that. And let's have a look and see how it goes. Very dark looking, so we don't need to, yeah, brighten that up a little bit more. I don't like the balance, the white balance. Yeah, as shot is fine. Once again, I have a custom setting already set up for my lights that was done with a color card, so that's already set, so I always just have that. I never really change it because I do it in camera. So a lot of this stuff is done in camera. You can see here there's not much to be done, just controlling the highlights a little bit, maybe just a little bit extra details here. I might use the brush tool with a small bit of an exposure just to give a little bit more pop to these reflections. I definitely want to crop it because you can see the end. You can actually see the end of the blackboard I was using, and this is going to be used on Instagram, and it was used on Instagram. This was used with the Irish whiskey auctions that I work for, so that's a good crop for that one. Let's have a look quickly on this. What do we think? Yeah, let's boost that. Leave it as is. Maybe take the yellows down. You don't, in this case, you don't really want them. It looks silly when it goes white like that. So maybe just control it a bit better. Green, no. Same with the aqua. Blue's doing really nothing. There's nothing really in this photo. So let's have a look. Now the thing is, this is a product. So what I'm going to probably do is get rid of the split toning and the teal and orange, because companies don't want to see weird colors happening to their products. They know, they will know. Let's boost that orange for the shadows. Maybe take down that yellow. It doesn't need to be, no. Just take down this. I'm just trying to control this color perfectly. Blue, yeah. You see, not much editing been done. The split toning is actually fine. It's not doing much. As well as that, with the split toning, because you're adding yellow into the highlights, it actually gets rid of the white, so it's never true white. So if you're photographing something that is supposed to be pure white, don't put split toning into it. Or if you do, add it to the shadows, don't put it into the highlights. And let's get rid of that. Actually, let's add it back in again. Yeah, now, see, the thing is, whiskies are, you know, they're matured in such a way. Some of them actually have food colouring added in as well to darken them, and the companies will know exactly the particular colour that they need to be. So adding in a huge amount of teal and orange when the whiskey doesn't look like that, you know, that could be the difference between it being a 5-year-old Irish whiskey and looking like a 12-year-old Middleton. That is, you know, that's the difference between a 30-year-old whiskey and a 250-year-old whiskey. And if someone sees that, you know, they're going to say that advertisement is misleading. It's a really pale, like some of the tealing whiskies are quite pale, so you really have to be true to the colours. So, you know, trying to put in your own flair to stuff isn't always accepted, and you have to, when you start working for companies, you need to know that as well. But this adding in maybe a little bit, just to accentuate it, is acceptable. But again, just beware that if you over treat something in the wrong way and you take the colour, if you go up to the hue, so if we went up to the hue right now, and I went to that, I went into that orange and changed it, like, they're not going to be happy. Where's all this red coming from? Our whiskey doesn't have red. Put it back. You know, you don't want that phone call. You don't want that email. So yeah, that's how I edit my photos. There's a huge amount of stuff there. Good examples of approaches that can be done. I really do hope you got something from this and you learned from this, and do experiment and try the method that I've gone with, especially with how I treat my colours with the hue, saturation and luminance. Don't forget to check out my Instagram page and take part in my weekly Q&A on the Duffers Tuesday Tips. That is, like, it's almost a year now. I can't believe it, and how popular it's really getting. Like, so if you have any questions, feel free to submit them in for Duffers Tuesday Tips. And until next time, later Gators.